Angel by your side.
It's a junk journal. It's basically a journal with a whole bunch of pictures and cute little papers and stuff like that.
You could feel it before you heard it, the sharp, trembling crack in the air that always comes right before something breaks. And then it did. You stole my money. You stole my years. You stole my trust. And now you're going to hear me. The words sliced through the courtroom like lightning, silencing every whisper, every shuffle, every breath. Reporters froze mid-sentence. The rhythmic tap of a pen stopped dead. Even the hum of the air vents seemed to vanish, leaving only Janelle Brown's voice raw, shaking but unflinchingly steady as it echoed across the marble chamber. This was not the Janelle the world had known. Not the quiet one, not the peacemaker. Not the wife who smiled through pain to keep a fractured family looking perfect for television. This was a woman who had been stripped bare by decades of silence. Now standing in her truth before a judge, before her ex-husband, and before a world that had mistaken her gentleness for weakness. Janelle stood at the plaintiff's table, her hands trembling not with fear but with purpose. Her spine was straight, shoulders squared, a storm of strength contained within fragile stillness. Every eye in the courtroom turned to her, the woman who had, for 30 years, carried the Brown family's invisible weight. Across from her sat Cody Brown, the once charismatic patriarch whose confidence had built an empire and destroyed the hearts that sustained it. His jaw was locked tight, arms crossed like a man barricading himself behind the illusion of control. The sharp gleam in his eyes had dulled into something almost unreadable. Shame, denial. While beside him sat Robin Brown, the woman who had once been the favored wife. Her lips pressed into a trembling line, oversized sunglasses hiding eyes that glistened with guilt. The judge, a silver-haired woman in her 60s with posture as straight as her principles, nodded toward Janelle. "Miss Brown, you may proceed." Janelle's breath hitched then steadied. "This is not about a failed marriage," she began, her voice firm enough to cut glass. "This isn't about jealousy or fame or who got more airtime on television. This is about justice. This is about betrayal. I stood by Cody Brown for 30 years through poverty, through childbirth, through heartbreak and humiliation. I raised 6 children of my own and helped raise the rest. I worked for the family business, invested in ventures I never controlled, and gave every ounce of myself to a vision that was never really mine." She stopped for a heartbeat. "I didn't just help build a family, I helped build an empire. And when I finally walked away, all I was given was an RV and a broken spirit." A ripple moved through the courtroom. The journalists in the back leaned forward. A few members of the public gasped softly. Those who knew Janelle, the calm one, the quiet one, couldn't reconcile this fierce figure before them. Even her lawyer, Lisa Carmichael, a sharp-eyed woman in a Navy suit, simply nodded, letting her client's strength fill the silence. Janelle went on. "Your Honor, I'm not here seeking revenge. I'm here seeking accountability. I want this court to understand what happened not just to me, but to every woman who has been told to stay quiet. I want my daughters to see that silence is not strength, that walking away is not weakness, that telling the truth is power." Cody shifted in his seat. He whispered something to his lawyer, but his words were swallowed by Janelle's voice, low, steady, commanding. "He created a system," she said, "where love was conditional, where money was hidden, where questioning him meant betrayal. There was only one wife with access to the real comfort, the real security, the real power, his favorite wife. The rest of us were expected to smile for the cameras and suffer in silence." The judge lifted her pen, eyes narrowed. Cody's attorney jumped to his feet. "Objection, Your Honor, this sounds more like personal attack than legal argument." The judge didn't flinch. "Overruled. This is opening testimony. She may proceed." Janelle turned her gaze back to Cody. "When I asked why Robin got a 5-bedroom house and I got a camper," she said, her voice tightening, "he told me I chose that life. But what I chose was trust. What I chose was partnership. And what I received was financial devastation." Whispers fluttered through the courtroom. Some gasped outright. Janelle continued, unbroken. This lawsuit isn't about our spiritual marriage. It's about what he did with our joint money. It's about the investments I helped build, the businesses I worked for, the land I was promised but never owned. It's about the $385,000 that was moved into secret accounts without my knowledge, without my consent, and entirely in Robin Brown's name. Every syllable landed like a hammer. Robin flinched. Cody's jaw tightened further. The judge leaned forward slightly. "Miss Brown," she asked, "how long were you financially connected with Mr. Brown?" "Since 1993, Janelle replied. "Every investment, every purchase, every plan was made under the belief that it belonged to the family. But over time, the accounts shifted. The ownership changed. Everything was moved into Robin's name." Lisa Carmichael stepped forward, placing a thick binder on the table labeled Exhibit A, Financial Transfers and Correspondence. "Your Honor," she said, "these documents include bank records, emails, and transaction screenshots detailing the transfer of joint funds." The monitor behind the judge flickered to life. Rows of transactions appeared on the screen, numbers that glowed like evidence of betrayal itself, labeled with vague descriptors like personal reallocation or debt adjustment. Lisa pointed to the figures. These transfers were made repeatedly, all to an account belonging to Robin Brown at a separate branch in Flagstaff. The amounts correspond to dates when Janelle Brown was denied financial access. The judge frowned. Was Ms. Brown ever allowed to view or manage these accounts? Lisa shook her head. "No, Your Honor. When she asked for access in 2021, she was told, and I quote, 'It's none of your business. Trust me.'" A murmur swept the courtroom. On the screen, the quote appeared in bold text. "It's none of your business, Janelle. Trust me." Janelle closed her eyes for a moment, steadying herself against the wave of humiliation that came with seeing those words displayed for everyone to read. "That," she said quietly, "was the moment I realized trust had become control. I wasn't being protected, I was being erased." The judge's pen stopped moving. The gravity of the words seemed to hang in the air. Lisa turned to the next slide. "Exhibit B," she announced. An internal memo from the family's business manager stating, quote, "Per Cody's instruction, direct all streaming revenue to the R. Brown account until Robin's mortgage is paid in full." The courtroom erupted in whispers. Robin's face went pale. Janelle's voice cut through again, measured but fierce. "While I was being told we couldn't afford a home, while I was living in a trailer in the desert, he was funneling the family's income to pay off Robin's $900,000 house. He said it was for taxes. He said it was temporary. It was neither." Lisa gestured toward the judge. "Your Honor, these actions demonstrate not oversight but deliberate economic control. This is financial isolation disguised as family management." The judge's expression hardened. Was any other wife aware of these transactions? Lisa replied Christine Brown was not granted access either. And Mary Brown received partial funds only through Cody's approval. Every dollar had to pass through him. Robin, however, held full authority over the account. Cody's attorney interjected weakly. "My client was simply following a structure that worked." The judge raised her hand. "A structure that left one woman destitute and another enriched." Silence. Lisa displayed one final document, a dated transfer of $75,000 into the R. Brown Family Trust. Just weeks before Robin's home purchase. The timing was damning. "This," Lisa said, "occurred less than a month after Janelle requested funds to buy a modest home and was told by Mr. Brown that it was financially impossible." The courtroom froze. Even Cody seemed to stop breathing. The judge glanced over her glasses. "Mr. Brown, would you like to respond?" Cody stood, his voice sharp with strain. "Your Honor, this was not manipulation. This was responsibility. I was safeguarding the family's money. I couldn't have every wife dipping into funds whenever she pleased." The judge's eyebrow lifted. "So instead, you allowed only one to dip freely." "Aisha Robin was my legal wife," Cody stammered. "The only one I could trust with paperwork, with taxes." Lisa's tone sliced through him. So, spiritual wives gave you labor, loyalty, and incumbent, no legal rights in return. Cody's voice faltered. That's not, the judge cut him off. Enough. The silence that followed was suffocating. Cameras clicked. Reporters scribbled furiously. Janelle stood motionless, her eyes locked on Kadan in hatred. But in something deeper, sadder, the recognition of a truth she had always known but never spoken aloud. Lisa's voice rose again, clear and strong. Your Honor, my client isn't seeking pity. She's seeking fairness. She is a woman who carried the financial and emotional backbone of a family, only to be cast aside when she no longer served the patriarch's chosen narrative. This case is not about faith. It's about fraud. It's not about love. It's about power. The judge leaned back in her chair, exhaling softly. The courtroom had shifted. You could feel its tide turning, the authority reversing, the truth crawling out from beneath decades of silence. Janelle closed her binder, the sound echoing like punctuation on a lifetime of betrayal. Her eyes glistened, but her face remained unflinching. Her eyes glistened, but her face remained unflinching. It didn't start with words. It started with footsteps. Slow, deliberate, echoing off the courtroom marble like the ticking of a clock running out of time. Every head turned. Every camera lifted. The doors opened, and in walked Christine Brown, the woman whose quiet exit from the Brown family had once looked peaceful but had really been the calm before the storm. She wasn't the Christine the world remembered, smiling through pain on television, pretending unity where there was none. No, this Christine walked with fire. Her golden hair framed a face that no longer carried the weight of pretending. Her eyes were clear, fierce, unafraid. She walked straight past the cameras, straight past Cody's stunned stare, and stopped beside Janelle at the plaintiff's table. Your Honor, Lisa Carmichael said softly, Christine Brown has been called as our next witness. The courtroom buzzed with whispers, reporters typing furiously, phones flashing, people whispering her name like a headline come to life. Cody's lawyer shifted uncomfortably. Robin gripped her clutch so tightly her knuckles turned white. Cody himself leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadably flicker of anger, a touch of panic, and something else beneath it. Fear. The judge gestured for Christine to approach the stand. Miss Brown, please take your seat. Christine placed her hand on the Bible, her voice steady as she swore the oath. When she sat, she didn't look at the judge. She looked straight at Cody. You told the world I was the problem, she began, her voice quiet but deadly calm. You said I abandoned the family, that I broke the covenant, but you never told them why. Cody shifted. Christine, don't. Her voice cut through his like a knife. You had your chance to tell your story. Now it's my turn. The tension was electric. Even the judge didn't interrupt. Christine's eyes glistened, but her words didn't tremble. For years, I believed in something sacred. I believed in love that could stretch to fit more than one heart. I believed in unity, in faith, in family. But what I didn't realize was that our version of faith was built on fear. You were the one holding that. Fear over all of us. Cody's lawyer started to object, but the judge waved him down. Proceed, Miss Brown. Christine nodded, her breath steadying. When I left, people called me bitter. They said I walked away because I was jealous of Robin. But jealousy wasn't my reason. Survival was. I left because I saw what was happening behind the curtain. The money, the lies, the manipulation. Lisa Carmichael stepped closer. Miss Brown, she said gently, can you tell the court what you discovered? Christine turned toward the monitor. A folder labeled Exhibit C, recorded conversations, appeared. I didn't want to believe it, she said. So I started recording our meetings. Not to expose him, to protect myself. The courtroom stirred. Even the judge's pen paused. Lisa clicked play. The speakers crackled to life. Cody's voice filled the room, calm, confident, and cold. Christine, you don't understand how money works in a family this big. I move it where it needs to go. You don't need to see every detail. Just trust me. Then Robin's voice. It's all being handled. You don't want to make this a bigger deal than it is." Then silence followed by Christine's voice, faint but firm. "So you're saying Janelle doesn't need access either?" Cody replied, laughing softly. "Janelle trusts me. Don't be like Mary always suspicious." The audio stopped. The courtroom froze. The weight of the recording was crushing. It wasn't just proof, it was confession. Christine looked up, eyes glistening. That's how it always went. Trust me. That phrase became his weapon. It was how he controlled us financially, emotionally, spiritually. We weren't wives. We were employees of a system that revolved around his ego. Robin's voice cracked across the courtroom. "That's not true," she shouted. The judge immediately struck the gavel. "Mrs. Brown," the judge warned, "you will not speak out of turn." Christine didn't even look at her. "You told us we were a sisterhood. But when we asked about the missing money, you said, 'Don't rock the boat.' You said, 'Cody's handling it.' But you knew. You always knew." Robin's lips trembled. She looked at Cody, but he wouldn't meet her eyes. Lisa moved to the next slide. Exhibit D, communications from Flagstaff Credit Union. The monitor displayed a chain of emails, names, numbers, amounts. Each one told the same story. Family funds rerouted into a single account under Robin Brown. Christine's voice grew stronger. "When I left, I didn't take anything. I didn't fight for property. I just wanted peace. But then I found out that peace was bought with my silence. Every time one of us questioned the finances, he'd tell us we were ungrateful, that God didn't bless rebellious wives. He weaponized religion to justify greed." The judge nodded slowly, her face unreadable. "Continue." Christine's tone shifted, less fury now, more heartbreak. "Your Honor, we filmed a show about family, but we lived a lie about power. Every choice was his. Every check, his signature. He told me I was free to leave, but what he didn't say was that if I left, I'd lose everything I helped build. Every dime, every dream, every part of the future I earned." The room was silent except for the clicking of the stenographer's keys. Christine continued. "When I left him, I thought the pain would end. But then I saw Janelle living in that RV, struggling while he bought new property with Robin. That's when I realized the truth. It was never about family. It was about control. He didn't love us equally. He managed us strategically." Lisa flipped to another exhibit, photos of documents, contracts, property deeds. "Miss Brown," she asked, "did you personally witness any of these transactions?" Christine nodded. "I did. I was in the room when he signed papers for the Flagstaff house. I asked whose name was on the deed, and he said it was for all of us. But when I checked the records a year later, the only name on that deed was Robin Brown." Gasps filled the courtroom. Robin looked down, eyes filling with tears she didn't bother to wipe away. Cody's jaw twitched. Christine turned to the judge. "I believed him because I wanted to. Because I thought love meant trust. But love without truth is just manipulation with good lighting." The judge exhaled quietly. "And you have proof of your claim?" Lisa produced the certified deed. Filed July 12, 2020. Owner Robin Brown, funds withdrawn. C. Brown joint account. The judge nodded, lips tightening. Entered into evidence. Christine's hand shook as she reached for a glass of water. "You know what hurts the most?" she said softly. "It's not the money. It's knowing that the man who preached honesty and faith to millions couldn't give either to his own family. I was loyal for 26 years. I gave him everything. He gave me nothing but blame." Cody leaned forward, breaking his silence. "That's not fair, Christine. You left us. You embarrassed me. You destroyed this family." Christine turned, her voice trembling with fury. "You destroyed it the day you decided Robin's comfort mattered more than everyone else's survival." The courtroom erupted. Reporters whispered, pens flying, cameras flashing. The judge slammed the gavel again. "Order." Christine didn't stop. "You stood on television and said God told you to favor her. But what kind of God tells a man to starve one wife while feeding another? What kind of man calls that leadership?" The words hit Cody like blows. His face reddened, his mouth opening, but no words coming out. The judge gestured to Christine. "Please compose yourself." Christine took a breath. Her tears came, then not the weak kind, but the kind that cleans years of silence off a person's soul. "I stayed quiet for too long. I stayed quiet while he rewrote our story. But the truth doesn't need his permission anymore." She looked around the courtroom, then directly at the reporters in the back. "Tell them," she said. "Tell them what really happened. Tell them we weren't angry wives, we were survivors of control." The judge nodded to the clerk. "Let the record show. This testimony corroborates financial misconduct claims filed by Janelle Brown." As Christine stepped down from the stand, the crowd stood in stunned silence. Even Robin couldn't look up. Cody sat motionless, face drained of color. For a moment, the only sound was the quiet closing of Christine's folder. Then, slowly, the tide of whispers began again. The dynasty he built on loyalty was cracking before his eyes, and it wasn't the cameras tearing it down this time. It was truth. And as Christine walked out of the courtroom, the silence she left behind was deafening. Because for the first time in Brown family history, truth had finally stood up, and it wasn't sitting down again. Sitting down again. It was supposed to be his stage. The courtroom. The lights. The eyes of the world. For decades, Cody Brown had thrived under the camera's glare, twisting chaos into charm, conflict into control. But now, the same spotlight that once glorified him was mercilessly unmasking him. There were no producers to edit his rage, no loyal wives to soften his image, no faith narrative to hide behind. There was only truth, raw, uncut. Unedited, projected in front of everyone who had once believed in the man who called himself a leader. He sat at the defense table like a statue cracking under its own weight. His shoulders slumped, his eyes darted between the judge, the evidence, and the two women he once dismissed as replaceable. Janelle's gaze was cold steel. Christine's expression was calm, resolute, almost merciful. Robin sat beside him, mascara streaking down her face, her trembling hands clutching the same folder she'd once used to sign away everyone else's security. The irony was brutal. The very paper trail that once protected them was now the noose tightening around their necks. The courtroom was so silent you could hear the creak of the judge's chair as she leaned forward. "We have heard testimony from multiple parties," she said, her voice steady and cold. "We have reviewed financial records, recordings, and correspondence. What we have here is not simply a marital dispute. This is systematic deception. Mr. Brown, you didn't just mismanage money, you exploited trust." Cody blinked, swallowing hard. "Your Honor, that's not—" "Be quiet," the judge interrupted sharply. The gavel hit once, echoing like thunder. "You built your empire on the backs of women who trusted you, and you used that trust as currency." A gasp rippled through the audience. Robin buried her face in her hands. The judge turned toward Janelle. "Miss Brown, your courage in bringing this forward has been noted. The court recognizes your testimony as both credible and essential to establishing fact." Then to Christine, "And your recordings, those are damning evidence of coercion and concealment." Cody's jaw clenched. "You don't understand," but the judge cut him off again. "No, Mr. Brown, you don't understand. Marriage, no matter how unconventional, does not give one party the right to manipulate or impoverish another. You treated these women like assets. You made promises you never intended to keep. And when they questioned you, you silenced them under the guise of faith." The words hit like hammer blows, each one stripping away another layer of his authority. Lisa Carmichael stepped forward for the plaintiffs. "Your Honor, the plaintiffs request compensation for withheld earnings, fraudulent transfers, and unpaid equity from joint ventures totaling $893,000 with interest." The judge nodded. "Request acknowledged." She turned back to Cody. "Do you deny transferring the funds listed in Exhibits A through D?" Cody hesitated. "They were family funds. So you don't deny it?" The judge cut in. He froze. For the first time in his life, Cody Brown had nothing left to say. Christine sat quietly, watching him crumble. Her heart wasn't filled with triumph, just finality. Janelle glanced at her, a silent exchange passing between them, something that said, "We made it. We survived him." The judge lifted the file one last time. The court hereby rules in favor of the plaintiffs, Janelle Brown and Christine Brown, in the total amount of $893,000 plus damages. Furthermore, the court orders immediate audit of all family business accounts and assets held under the R. Brown Family Trust. The gavel struck, once, twice. Final, the sound didn't just echo, it ended. Robin gasped audibly, reaching for Cody's arm. He didn't move. His face was pale, eyes glassy. For once, there was no fire left in him, only silence. The man who once spoke for everyone suddenly had no voice left for himself. Outside, the flash of cameras waited. Reporters lined the steps like vultures smelling legacy blood. Inside, Janelle closed her binder slowly, her movements precise, calm. Christine stood beside her, both women facing forward, not backward. Cody exhaled shakily. "You're destroying everything," he muttered, voice barely audible. Janelle turned to him, eyes unwavering. "No," she said quietly. "We're rebuilding from what you destroyed." Robin broke down completely, sobbing into her hands. "Cody, say something, please." He looked at her, the woman he once called his soulmate. But the connection that had once seemed unbreakable was gone, fractured under the weight of truth. "I don't know what to say," he whispered. The judge stood to leave. "This court is adjourned." The bailiff called for order as the room erupted into murmurs, but Janelle and Christine didn't linger. They walked out side by side, heads held high, the weight of 30 years of silence lifting from their shoulders with every step. Behind them, Cody remained seated, staring blankly at the evidence still projected on the monitor, his own words, his own handwriting, his own downfall. And for the first time, there was no one left to blame but himself. Outside, the air was bright and cold. Cameras flashed, microphones thrust forward. "Janelle, Christine, what do you want to say to Cody Brown right now?" Christine didn't hesitate. "Nothing," she said simply. "We already said everything we needed to," Janelle added. "We just want peace."